Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Debz Cooper, Global Stressologist, here today to talk about why we need to speak up. Oh gosh, I'm sure I actually say this is an interesting one. So why do we need to speak up? So just firstly, let me know if you are here live or if you're here watching a replay, and I'd love to know where you are around the world. Thank you. So as I said, I'm Debz Cooper, Global Stressologist. I help people deal with whatever chaos is going on in their mind. So this has been one that's come about this week. So why do we need to speak up? So when I think about this, clearly I've been thinking about this, as I try to relate it to something that's really relatable to you, anything that you're holding on to, if you're holding on to anything and anything inside you, it isn't healthy for your body. We know that. So if you think of a kettle, a jug, boiling water, and you think about that, and you have, or in a saucepan, when you put that into a saucepan and it is boiling away. So there's your emotion, it's in that saucepan, it's boiling away. And what happens is the more it boils, the more it boils, the more it boils, the water disperses. You didn't know it was going to be a chemistry test today, did you? So the more it boils, the more the water disappears. Now, when the water boils away, what happens? It burns the pot or it burns the kettle or whatever. So it has lasting effects. So if you're holding on to things, thinking of that boiling water and it's bubbling away and it's getting more and more, it's dispersing, whatever, what happens is it has lasting effects. So another example, which I know if my mother's watching, I'm just going to say, whoops, ignore this little example, Mum. If you think of number twos, your bowel movement. So if you think of a number two, you know if you have to hold that in, what it does to you, what it actually does to your insides, but what it does to you mentally and physically. So maybe that's a better example for some people to get. So anything that you're holding in is not healthy for your body. Okay, I think I've made that really clear. So when we speak up, there's going to be a release of tension for you. Let me talk about your intuition versus your ego. So your intuition is the thing that pops in first, and then your mind races to the next thing. But your intuition is the very first answer that appears. With your intuition, you know when to speak up and when not to. You know when it's okay to say something and when it's cut that out. So often our ego is the one that wants to take control, and our intuition guides us to the truth. So our ego goes, oh, but I'm just going to say this, or I'm just going to do this, or whatever it is. But our intuition's saying, actually, you know what? I don't feel I need to speak right now. So when we think about that, we have our intuition over our ego to do we really need to speak up. The other thing with that is be aware of asking other people for advice. So if you ask other people for advice, they have their own intuition, they have their own ego, mind, brain noise stories, and they can put their spin on it for you, and it may not feel right to do or say something that they've suggested. So just be aware of other people. One of my favorites is Tony Robbins, who has said, are they a worthy opponent? So be aware that, are they a worthy opponent? Is this going to relate to them? My thing is, will they hear it at your level? When you speak at this level, are they going to hear it and understand it? Or are you going to come across as frustrated and then all they're going to hear is your frustration and it's not going to get heard? So think about that. Think, are they a worthy opponent? And will they hear and understand at your level that you're giving out? So when I talk about this, I think about why we need to speak up. So we get frustrated if things happen around us and we either speak up or we don't, clearly. So frustration comes from numerous things. Frustration comes from not being educated enough, not seeing the bigger picture, not having a full understanding of both sides to everything that's going on. You know, the media, you sometimes often only hear one side, so think of that. We also get frustration when we are out of fair exchange, and fair exchange is what Dr. Demartini relates to, and it's when I do something for you so much and I don't get anything in return, or you do something so much for some other people and you don't get anything in return. So it means you're out of fair exchange, and when you're out of fair exchange, that's when frustration can happen. The other thing is your failures. And I talk about failures. So any frustration you have with what they're saying or doing could be your stuff. It will be. So that's where your frustration comes from. So you've just got to be aware that, are they a worthy opponent? And will they hear it at your level? So when I say, will they hear it at your level, I encourage people to speak up, but speak from a heartfelt place. And when I talk about a heartfelt place, I talk about the no judgment, no blame, no bringing up past stories from 10 years ago or longer, no pointing the finger, no attitude, no punchy, whatever it is. So there's none of that. A heartfelt space is, what's going on? I know this is not you. Are you okay? Not, listen here, you promised me this and you're not doing it. There's a difference level of when we speak. So if you continue to speak from the heartfelt place, they will get that and they will understand that. They may not, if you've been a boxer and then suddenly you go to a heartfelt, they may go, whoa, what's happened to her? Why is she changing? What's going on? That's okay. Just keep continuing to speak from the heart, because it's better for your soul and your insides to speak up and speak from the heart. They will get it when their ego explodes and they start listening to their intuition. They're going to get it. The other key is to remember that you can't take on other people's emotions. So you cannot take on other people's emotions. Oh, there we go. You cannot take on other people's emotions when you say something or they react to anything. If you speak from the heart, you're going to stay in that love bubble, in that heartfelt space, and that is where you're going to be able to be most productive from that to get your message across, and they will understand that. So you cannot take on other people's emotions. That is their bubble. Don't let their bubble come into your bubble. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how we say to other people. So we might say to some other people, you need to speak up here. You need to say something. I'm sick to death of you getting walked upon with your family or your friends, or this person taking advantage of you or anything. That's not a heartfelt space. You can see it, can't you? My fingers going all over the place. You can see that and feel that. So you really can't tell others to speak up, but you can help them. So when I've got a little rascal down here, that's going to be another story, another Facebook Live, I'm sure. So when we think about that, you just don't know what they're dealing with. When we think about this, you don't know what they're dealing with. If you think they're better to seek professional advice, there is a professional here, or someone who they gel with. But you can't tell others to speak up, because you really don't know what's going on in their world and to those others they're doing it with, speaking to. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about your children. And this is a great one for parents, because what happens is when your children have interactions at school, you know those ones, they have interactions at school, and I was brought up in a very different era to my daughter, and so are my parents. So we would, not necessarily, we would say, go yell in their face, or push them, or punch them, or whatever. Now, there's none of that goes on. But we say these things to them. So we actually can't say to our child, go yell in their face and tell them, that's not right, I don't like this. There's no point in doing that, because you're actually not educating your child. So it's wiser to guide your children to what feels right for them at their level. We can't all come in as a boxer We have to train to be that boxer. That boxer could be energy, verbal, physical, whatever, but we have to train that. So when we think about that and we have to train our children and see what fits for them, be aware of that. But show your children about respecting boundaries for them, their boundaries, and for others around. And it's just about speaking up and being okay with the word no, that doesn't feel right for me. And when they come from not fear, not from, boxing area, and they come from the heart and say that to somebody, you'll be surprised how things shift. Because if you can start doing it yourself, you'll see it in your children. If you've got a friend, now I talked about children, but if you've got a friend who is having trouble at work, partner, money, business, anything, life, anything, just listen and hold space for that friend. Listen and hold space. When you listen and hold space, you're giving them that energy and that's sitting in that heartfelt space again. So think of yourself. What would you do in this situation? Would it help others to hear your story if you've had that story where you've gone through something? Would it help you to share that? Or would it not? That's entirely up to you. I just would like to talk just briefly about sharing stories, when to share and when not to share. So, or when to speak up and when not to speak up. So it's wise to empower people. It's wise to have that conversation and empower people, but not demoralize them, because there's nothing worse than being picked on, demoralized, challenged, any of those things that can become frustrating for you, because we all don't want it. We all don't want that stuff going on in our world. So it's wiser to empower them, like I said. So when I think about this, think of a pay increase. You can't go to your boss and say, I want a pay increase. I'm entitled to this pay increase. I've been here 20 years. I don't know why I've only get one every 6 months. So that's not how it works. Just because you've been there 6 months or 20 years, it doesn't mean you're entitled to a pay increase. So what service have you provided that entitles you to that pay increase? What have you done over and beyond your last 19 and a half years? So where is that for, that you can show them, hey, I've been taking this on, I've been doing this, and this has been a win for the organization. So don't just ask for a pay increase because you've been there 6 months or 20 years or anything. Actually show what you've been doing. If you haven't been doing anything, you're not entitled to anything. Think about that one. The other one, if you have partners or children and they're not doing anything around the house, think about children again, stop doing it for them. Just stop. Stop doing it for them. You're enabling them to make you do all the work. You're going to get more frustrated. So mention it to them from the heart. Yet again, mention to them, I've noticed this has happened. Would you mind putting your clothes away? I've noticed this has happened. Would you mind putting your lunchbox on the bench so I don't have to get it the next day? Like, think about those things. I'm not talking about threatening them or anything like that. I'm just saying speak from the heart and they will get that. If they're not getting it, then you have to take another approach. But just start from that one. The other thing is people interfering. And this is an interesting one, because sometimes you hear people and you say, oh my gosh, I've been so frustrated with my job, this is what's happening. And someone jumps in and goes, this is what you need to do. And I put that tone on because you know those ones. This is what you need to do. And they start da-da-da. So if someone's having a moan, empower them. Remember, empower, not disable. So when they're having a moan, just hold that space for them. If you feel you're ready to have a moan, hold that space for yourself and go, what is best for me? Just, people will often give their opinion because they see you in a pickle or they're in a state, or they feel they have more knowledge that can help you with that. Often people don't see that they're giving advice and you're not receiving it the way it was sent. They can become animated, excited, just do this, this, and this, and you can see that person, you're just like, that is not me. That is not me. I don't want to be doing that. That's okay. So just be aware of your bubble and their bubble when I talk about this. and strangers or strangers. So if you hear a stranger and something's going on around them, decide if they're a worthy opponent. And who will be more frustrated if you give advice to a complete stranger and they get frustrated with you? So who's going to get more? So when we think about this, it's wise to pick and choose your own battles. Pick and choose your own battles. Don't sweat the small stuff. But when I say don't sweat the small stuff, be aware that the small stuff can escalate if you don't handle it. You know that it escalates. Think of that tummy at the very start. Think of that water boiling if you don't handle it. If you're stuck with anything that I've said today, anything, or if something really resonated to you or didn't resonate with you, please reach out. You can message me here. You can private message me. Send me a message, debzcooper.com. I would like to thank you for joining today and why we need to speak up. And that's me speaking up, over and out. So thank you very much. I will see you next week. Have an amazing day. Bye.